What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. And real quick housekeeping note, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, or on Rumble as well. Please hit the subscribe. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, iTunes, or any of your podcast platforms, please hit that follow and subscribe button. Really appreciate it. So we can bring you more interviews like the ones I'm bringing you today. And we got a full house today. They said, looking like Hollywood Squares up here. We got each and every member of the band Among the Stars. How are you guys doing?
Good. How you doing?
Great.
Doing great.
Good. So, fresh off the Incarceration Festival, which we'll get into. And, last year I had the pleasure of interviewing Pistachia from your school and heard their journey. So I definitely want to get into your guys' journey as well through the Berklee musical program there. But usually when I have people on for the first time, I like to ask, take them way back. So originally, what did you want to be when you grew up? And we'll just go across. Well, ladies first. We'll start with, is it Talia?
Thalia.
Okay. We'll start with you then.
I've always wanted to be a performer. It wasn't until high school that I realized it was a rock star that I wanted to be specifically. But yeah, I've always wanted to be performing.
And then we'll just go to Nick next.
I guess the earliest thing for me, like when I was a little kid, is that I wanted to be a football player.
So now
Okay,
me,
James?
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Ready for the same exact answer, because that was exactly what I wanted to be as like a fourth grade student when they ask everybody. So football player was my first thing too.
Nice. Then Matt.
Yeah, up until about like 8th grade, I would say I wanted to be an astronaut. So, yeah.
And now you're among the stars, so it kind of worked out. And how about you, Tanner?
I'm kind of the same as Thalia. I've always wanted to be a performer. So
Nice. And then like when you guys and we'll keep going in the same order then. When you how old were you when you guys first like discovered music and kind of felt that and what was it that kind of drew you in and attracted you to want to perform, take it to the next level?
Yeah, so I discovered music when I was super young. I was taking voice lessons since like before I could read. And we used to have like those little concerts that they put on at the end of the season or whatever. And all the other girls are like reading their lyric reading. And I was just standing there like wiggling because I couldn't read yet. So I've been taking like voice lessons and been into singing for a long time. But, around middle school, I had the worst stage fright. And so I kind of refused to sing. I stopped singing for a long time. And surprisingly enough, what got me out of that and what got me to decide that I kind of wanted to pursue it as a career and that performing was what I really like had to do was Shawn Mendes. When I was in 8th grade, I met him and I was go and do what he does and be with him. And that's what got me to do this so seriously.
Nice. And how old are you?
21.
Okay, that makes sense. And my oldest is 21 too, and she's a big Shawn Mendes fan. And and how about you, Nick?
Well, I got into music really early on. Around the time I was born, my dad was like still playing in bands and stuff like that. And it was actually me being born along with other things with the other guys, they were all moving on in their personal lives. So the band kind of ended there. But yeah, my dad played in bands. There were guitars around the house growing up. Listened to a lot of Zeppelin, Black. Well, it was like 80s and 90s, more like grunge kind of stuff. And then, like glam metal. Then when I was in middle school, I got more into my own, I developed my own music taste a little more. So I got more into like thrash metal, like Megadeth, stuff like that. I got really, really into Iron Maiden. And that's kind of what made me want to play bass. in the first place. And then once I got into high school, I was more into progressive metal like Dream Theater, and those guys all went to Berklee, and Berklee reps them a lot. So that's where I heard about that, and that's kind of where I made the decision to pursue music on that level.
Nice. And James?
Yeah, so I, much like everyone else who goes to Berklee College of Music, I started, messing around and caring a lot about music at a very young age. There's pictures of me like with my grandfather as like a 1-year-old, just like banging on a piano, just like being interested by the concept of like an object making a sound that's pleasing. And so, I always had a particular fondness for music. But I wouldn't say it was until I was like 10 or so years old that I started like really caring about guitar specifically. I remember the first thing that really made me have an appreciation for guitar over any other instrument was that game Guitar Hero, specifically Guitar Hero 3. I remember playing it and being like, oh, this is so cool. And then I would try to learn my favorite Guitar Hero songs on real guitar, because there were a few guitars laying around my house. My dad used to play guitar, not crazy seriously, but he had instruments around. And then in like around middle school, I was like taking music lessons, and occasionally that school would put on like little benefit shows and stuff like that. So I would just play like a single Bob Marley song, in front of like 20 people. And I just kept doing that, doing small little performances all the way up through high school, slowly sort of playing harder and harder music and caring more about what I was playing and stuff like that. And I guess like it was when I started getting into bands like Rush and more complicated music, that I started really, really taking it seriously. And I guess I just chose to be a musician based on the fact that I didn't really have anything else going on for me that made a lot of sense. So I just went in that direction.
Nice. And Matt?
Yeah, so much like Nick and James, I didn't really grow up around music per se, because nobody in my family is particularly musical. But much like them, I grew up around classic rock. And, my first introductions to music were like Boston, Led Zeppelin, bands like that. And then I would say, much like James, around the age of 6 or 7, I had actually started playing Guitar Hero as well. That's where I found a lot of my current favorite bands. It was very influential in my life. It still is kind of a part of my life as well. But that opened the door to what is now currently my favorite band, which is Muse. And that it was exactly the same thing as James. I had been playing these songs on Guitar Hero for so long, and I had so much not ridicule, but kind of like push from my family to be like, well, you're playing a plastic guitar, you might as well play the real one. And I eventually started doing that, and I started learning, Muse, other bands that were on there, Slayer, I'm trying to think of who else was on there, Rage Against the Machine, bands like that. And then I would say in about 7th grade, I switched over to more like alt rock, so like Radiohead, Interpol, those kinds of bands. And then once 9th grade hit, kind of the same thing that happened to Nick happened to me, which was where I got more into progressive metal, because I was just enamored by, the concepts of those albums and the concept of writing that kind of music. I still kind of am. But, Dream Theater, my big ones are Dream Theater, Periphery, and Animals as Leaders. And they still are, Periphery and Animals as Leaders are still some of my favorite bands. But now I'm here, and that all led me here. So
Nice. And how about you, Tanner?
Well, for me, I was kind of just raised around a bunch of musicians, as is. Both my grandparents and my dad and all of his siblings all grew up playing instruments. So it was kind of just like meant to be for me, I guess. So I picked up drums around the age of 4. And I was raised on metal music from the get-go. So I was listening to bands like Metallica and Slipknot. So when I like first started learning drums, I immediately just like wanted to double kick pedal just so I could do all like the fast stuff. And even though I like couldn't do it well, it was just something I was super interested in. And I guess like from there, when I got to high school is really when I started to expand my like genres of music, I guess. So I started listening to more like metalcore and prog metal and whatnot. So like Matt said, Perforating Animals Leaders, those two bands are like my favorite bands, and they have been since I was about 16. And I found out the drummer of Animals Leaders, Matt Garsko, went to Berklee. So that's kind of what like tied me into Berklee. I had no idea that it was a school until that point. So as soon as I saw he went here, I was just fully invested in going here.
Nice. So I want to ask you each about like kind of like before Berklee, still in high school or whatever. You're first like where you know say like where you guys are from originally, and like what was the music scene like in your hometown before you know shipping off to Berklee. And we'll start again with Dahlia.
I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and there's a really awesome music scene there. It's, I don't know, I think still pretty small, but it's kicking. And I had the opportunity stuff within that scene and to work with a lot of different artists in a lot of different genres. And it was really great for, you know, what we do now, metal. I think there used to be quite the metal scene in Richmond, you know, the era of Lamb of God. And I think it's kind of dwindling a little bit now, but there is still a good scene of songwriters and some incredible musicians and performers. It was just a bit of a different ball game coming into Berklee, though, because Berklee, as amazing like Richmond is, scene is, and all of my amazing musician friends there, Berklee is just such a high concentration of musicians that it's kind of a different game.
Gotcha. How about you, Nick?
I'm also from Virginia. I'm closer to the northern side, just a little bit outside of what's considered like the DC metro area. And yeah, I mean, when I first got my start playing like live music, I was actually playing with like a country singer, just because that's where the gigs were. And there's like a good scene for that as far as like playing at restaurants, you know. And when I was in high school doing this, obviously you get paid doing that, so I was pretty into that. But then when I started my own progressive metal band, I really got into the metal scene there. And I can't speak much for it now because it's been so long since I've been around there, but at least the time that I was playing around there, the metal scene was like small, but awesome. I thought it was, you know, there were really good bands. Everybody was really supportive. Definitely a strong focus on mutual support. So yeah, I don't know. I think the scene in the Northern Virginia area for metal, at least when I was playing there, was, you know, not huge. There weren't a ton of bands, but everybody that was in it was really into it, and it was a really good experience for me to play with those guys and to play alongside some of those guys who I'm still very happy to know and stay in touch with.
Nice. And how about you, James?
Yeah, so sort of similarly to Nick, so I'm from like South Central Jersey, a place called Tom's River. It's pretty close to Seaside, but it was a similar situation where it was a pretty tight-knit community, with a lot of like emphasis on just like camaraderie amongst the bands that played in the scene. I mean, it was like usually the same 5 or 6 bands that were around, but like because of that, everybody sort of knew who everyone was. And it's like what Nick was saying in his situation, is everyone was super supportive and really encouraging and always super excited to be playing with people and to be hearing new music and stuff like that. As far as genre goes, I didn't really get involved in the music scene from where I'm from until like senior year of high school, and I was in like basically like a garage band, kind of indie band type thing. So that's mostly what I was around. There's like a very strong, deeply rooted indie, like emo kind of scene going on there. But one of the things that I love about Jersey so much is that you could drive across the whole state in like 2 hours, and you'll go by scenes of like every different genre of music. So like there's a huge presence for metal music in New Jersey that I just like wasn't exposed to until after graduating high school, unfortunately. But some of like the most insane metal musicians I've ever met in my entire life are from New Jersey. So it's just a really cool place to, you know, be around a lot of different styles of music in very close-knit communities where you really feel a sense of like belonging when you are involved with them.
Nice. And how about you, Matt?
Yeah, so like James, I'm also from Jersey, but I'm from Northern Jersey, and anyone who's from Northern Jersey knows that there's no such thing as metal in Northern Jersey. And it's because even like speaking strictly locally, I am probably one of like 3 or 4 people that I can think of out of the time that I went to high school, at least, that actually listen to metal. And I'm great friends with all those people, but legitimately, if I knew somebody was into metal, I would probably know because that's how like small it was. Um, so when it came to like playing metal shows and having a metal community, all of that was located in New York for me. So all of it was basically centered around like Hudson County, Rockland County, just over the border of Northern Jersey. And one of my best friends ever currently lives there still and is actively touring with one of his bands. And he introduced me to a lot of bands in that scene. We were in a band together for a little while, and we had met a lot of people through the connections that he had. But it was just incredible to see this like complete stark difference between like just probably 20 miles away compared to where I was currently. Because like I said, I only can think of like 3 or 4 people that I went to high school with that actually listened to metal. And not all of them were the type of metal that I listened to. Some of them weren't even metal. Some of them were like punk rock, but I still classify them into like harder styles of music. So, but yeah, there wasn't much of a community in Mahwah, New Jersey. So,
Gotcha. How about you, Tanner?
So I'm from Tyler, Texas. It's like a kind of small town east of Dallas. And basically, the weird thing about Texas is because of how big it is, it's like there are very different like musical genres just across the state. But my specific area was like very into country. So it's like basically most of the gigs I got were either like jazz like lunch gigs, or they were like country gigs that I just like got because I was getting paid. And I don't really listen to a whole lot of country personally. It was not something I really enjoyed that much growing up. And as for like the metal scene, it was like there were 2 bands that I know of from like within a 60-mile radius of Tyler, and I was in one of them. So it was kind of like we always played shows together. If we were to play a metal show, we'd always have like no one come because no one really liked metal. They thought of it as like weird and like quote unquote satanic in a way. So country was like the big thing where I was, I guess.
Gotcha. So like I want to kind of give the listeners a idea of like what it's like getting into Berklee from each of you. I mean, I know like because my youngest just graduated high school and she had to go through with her career counselor like applying for colleges and stuff like that. But what was each of your individual like journey? When did you know you wanted to go to Berklee? And like what was that journey like working through with your high school or to get accepted out there? And we'll start again with Talia.
Yeah, I didn't really know that Berklee was a school until pretty late into my found out about it. That was kind of where I had my sights set. So I just kind of did everything in my power, in high school to make me look like a a good Berklee candidate, you know, taking choir classes and working with my band and all of the possible musical things I could do. And then senior year rolled around and I sent in the application early because I didn't want to apply anywhere else. I was like, I just want to get into Berklee and go to Berklee. So I sent in the application early to Berklee and one other school. My acceptance from Berklee, I stopped applying to any other schools that I had thought about applying to. It was an easy, quick, done deal for me.
Nice. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, well, I knew that I wanted to go to school for music as early as like 8th grade. I specifically remember one of my classes, we were supposed to do some research on what we thought we might pursue in college. And I said then that I was going to do bass. And then when I got into Dream Theater and stuff like that, you know, that obviously pointed me more to Berklee, whereas I had previously been looking at like jazz programs in Virginia. And yeah, I actually was kind of unsure about committing to the music life when I got out of high school. So I actually did 1 year at James Madison University in Virginia, which was a good time. It was a good school, and I had a great time there. But that really affirmed to me that I was not in the right place, and Berklee was probably the right place. So yeah, I did 1 year. 1 year of like a regular college, and then decided to apply to Berklee. And ever since getting here, it's been exactly what I had hoped it would be. It's so cool to be surrounded by other people who are just as into music as I am.
Nice. James?
Yeah, I am quite the opposite of Nick in this regard, where I had no idea that I wanted to go to school for music until very late in the game. I had a guitar teacher for a very, very long time, many years, named George Vanderbilt, who had sort of secretly been prepping me to go to school for guitar while taking lessons with him. He got me into jazz. He got me into learning theory. He got my chops up, and it wasn't until like junior, senior year of high school, like really late, that I started to realize that it's like, okay, I don't really know what else I would do. This is definitely the thing I have the most tools to succeed in. So I applied to, like Valley, I applied to very few schools, Berklee being one of them. And I sort of had like a fail-safe school that was in New Jersey that I was still going to go to for music. But then once I got the letter from Berklee, I was like, okay, that's it. Like, if I don't try to take this opportunity, I'm an idiot. So I just went for it.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, so kind of like James, but also not really. I had been also kind of like secretly prepped, basically since I started learning guitar, because I was just trying to learn more concepts on the guitar. So I was always, trying to push my guitar teacher, and he was always like, "Well, if you like that, you might like this as well." Massive shout out to Brian Murphy. But what happened to me my senior year, though, was, and I don't know if I've told the guys this, but I submitted 3 applications, and the first one was Berklee, of course. Now, since like sophomore year, I pretty much knew that I wanted to do music, and I wanted to go to Berklee. But I submitted 2 other applications. Another one was to Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey, and that was for music technology, because I was just like, this will just be my fail-safe. And the third was astrophysics at Rutgers. And I got into all 3. And the issue that I faced all the way up until about 2 months before graduation was, what the hell am I going to do? I was so confused, because I had just been given a great opportunity to study something that I had been obsessed with my entire life, but then I was given another opportunity to study something I was obsessed with my entire life. So I had to choose between astrophysics and music. But I think I definitely made the right choice, for sure. So
Yep. That's awesome. How about you, Tanner?
Well, for me, like I said earlier, I didn't really know about Berklee until I was like 16, and no one else really did either. Since Boston is so far from where I'm from, it was kind of just like not something that people like talked about at all. If you ever mentioned Berklee, it was always the one in California. So the only music school that anyone where I grew up knew about was the University of North Texas, which is like super known for jazz, and it's a great music school. And that's the only other school I applied to. But as soon as I found out that you didn't only have to do jazz at Berklee, I was like fully sold on it. I was just like, this is where I want to go. This is a huge deal for me because like as much as I enjoy jazz, I think like obviously metal is something that I enjoy way more. So I found out you could do that. Went to a few summer camps. Realized like what the place was like. I was just like, I need to get into the school. And as soon as I got into the school, I was just like, I don't need to worry about college anymore. I have to go here. So I was kind of like in the same way that everyone else was. Like I was just set on it as soon as I got in.
Cool. Now, obviously they don't just take anybody off the street. So you guys had to, to be chosen. It sounds like it's been quite an honor, and you guys had to be pretty disciplined about your craft, even to get accepted. But what would you say that you've done, that you've learned since being accepted? Like, I mean, as disciplined as you were to practice your craft to get in, how much has Berklee helped up your game to make you better musicians? And we'll start from the beginning again.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. And I think that, when you get accepted to Berklee, you're so young. I was, I think, 17 when I got my acceptance. And so it would be impossible pretty much for me to have come here and to not have improved or grown in some way, because I was a baby and now I'm, older, and that's been 4 years of my life almost that I've spent here. But I think that the biggest thing that Berklee does for me is it kind of, firstly, it forces you to be around other people who are just as driven as you are. So sometimes, like when you're in high school and you're in high school music programs, it's really easy to like kind of coast and to just be in the class. But Berklee, being surrounded by people who are so driven and who are so talented, it just makes you want to actively be better. Every day you show up to class and you just want to get better at whatever it is you're doing. Not just for me, like not just singing, but my ear training classes, my harmony classes. I just wanted to be better all the time, being surrounded by so many amazing people. But also Berklee kind of broadened my horizons. It showed me a lot of different types of music, a lot of different aspects of music, because like, you listen to music all the time and you think you think you have it figured out. You're like, this is a song, this is what a song's like. And Berklee just gets in there and dissects it and shows you a bunch of different angles and a bunch of different things that like your 17-year-old self had never even thought to think about. So it really just kind of expanded my mind in that way, in showing me different approaches and different sides of this thing that I had loved so much for so long.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, I think probably one thing that you hear a lot from teachers at Berklee, or just generally music professionals, I think is that the best way to get better at music is to play with people who are better than you are. And obviously when you're coming from like a small town scene where you're one of the only bass players that's even into technical music, it's easy to feel like, you're just the dude and you're not really challenging yourself as much. And as soon as I got to Berklee, I joined a band with a bunch of dudes who had already graduated. They were much older than me, and I was immediately the worst player in the room every time we rehearsed. I was just mind blown at how good these guys were. And just repeating that throughout Berklee, honestly, is what completely took my playing to like a different level. It's just from repeatedly being the worst player in the room, playing with people who are so good will just automatically elevate you. And so, compared to just practicing scales, in your bedroom or whatever, it really is a night and day difference. So,
James?
Yeah, I mean, to sort of piggyback off of what Thalia said about Berklee broadening your musical horizons, I definitely experienced that. I had a roommate freshman year who was into like the completely different styles of music than I was. He was really into like jazz and like really cool like hip hop R&B type stuff and a lot of cool like fusion-y type things. And I sort of discovered that world and got really into like the sort of harmonic content that's seated in that style of music. And that definitely had like a huge impact on the way that I play and the way that I write nowadays. And I also just like what both Nick and Thalia said, like just being around people who are like literally like the top percentile of the best musicians of the world on a day-to-day basis, it just like makes you not only want to be better, but it makes you excited to want to be better. Like I know, speaking from personal experience, the difference of me as a guitar player from like senior year of high school and then like at the end of freshman year of college is like literally night and day. I got so much better at my instrument and music in general just within 1 year of being here. So now, having graduated, after 4 years, it's like it definitely feels like it's easy to forget how much progress you've made. But if you look back on yourself in, like in my case, in like 2018, it's like, wow, that kid sucked at guitar. And, now I'm, with these 4 guys and we're all killing it. So it's just, I don't know. It's an interesting experience.
Nice. Matt?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of had like, I don't know if this is the right word, but kind of like a monumental shift when I came here, because my whole obsession coming into Berklee was that I wanted to be like the introverted, secluded bedroom producer who wrote songs on his laptop. And, because I was obsessed with these are really obscure artists, I'm sorry, but people like Andromeda or David Maxim Michich or artists in those veins who were doing everything on their own and were making some of the best music I had ever heard at that time. I thought it was just completely mind-blowing. And then I would say probably when the pandemic happened and I met James, I had started listening to some music that I for a very long time shut out just because I didn't think it was worth it for me to spend time on something that, not that I didn't think it was worth my time, it's just I was so focused on honing in on this one particular style of music that I felt like if I was going to completely diverge from that and start focusing on something else, it would detract from my focus, my primary focus. So when I met James, we had both just started getting into another band together called The Contortionist, and that is probably one of my peak Berklee finds, was that band right there. And listening to that band pushed me even further because I had heard of Pat Metheny before, but hearing how much influence Pat Metheny had on The Contortionist caused me to do even more digging on his discography. Now Pat Metheny is my favorite guitarist of all time, no question, hands down. Also one of my favorite composers too. So I feel like not only Berklee has helped me, because of course, like everybody else said, having harmony classes introduces you to so many new artists as well. Like I'm a way bigger Stevie Wonder fan than I was going into Berklee just because of my harmony classes. But I'm in a position now where I feel like I am much, much more musically diverse than when I first came here, for sure. Absolutely.
Nice. Tanner?
Well, I think the big thing for me, being a drummer, I was never really like introduced to like writing music properly. I played like marimba in high school and whatnot, so I like knew how to like read music and whatnot, but like I never understood how to write it. So coming into Berklee, all the harmony classes were like mind blowing to me, because it was just like learning how harmony works and like what sounds good and like what you can do to make things sound different and how these make you feel certain ways. Like that was a huge deal to me, because like playing drums is like cool and all, but being able to write music and play drums is like game changing, I guess, for me. So with like working with these guys and working with like other musicians I've worked with, being able to like have input on the writing process, and like maybe I'm not as good at it as they are because, you know, they're more experienced and whatnot, but like I still have like input. I'm like, oh, I know this works, this sounds good. So that was like the big game changer for me, along with obviously coming up here. Same thing as Nick. It's like I came from a small town where it's like no one really knew what they were doing music wise. They kind of all played like very calm music and like not super difficult. And I came up here and everyone was just like way better than I was. I was just like, wow, you know, I need to practice. So I would like practice as much as possible. And I feel like the same as James, like coming from what I was at the beginning of my freshman year, like looking at videos of that, I look at myself and I'm just like, you know, this is, yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's crazy how much I've changed just in a matter of 3 years, you know, because I still have 1 year left at Berklee. So I'm like way better now. Same thing as James. It's a different world, you know?
Gotcha. Now, so you guys are what, seniors now?
Well, me and Matt just graduated, and Nick graduated in the fall, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, like, because you'd mentioned, like, you know, getting into other stuff like during the pandemic and stuff. So I was just wondering, like, were you guys still active in college during the pandemic, and what was that whole, I mean, transition like? Were you a band like this on a screen during that time? You really couldn't like meet together. And everybody can answer this one. We don't have to go in any order for that.
Well, I know me and Matt kept just trucking through. We just, you know, despite the pandemic, I know a lot of our friends took breaks from school. It was a very popular decision to make, but we just kept going. We finished on this, you know, standard 4-year track. But this band, like, as it is now, didn't exist actually until school had sort of resumed. It was me and Matt for a little bit. I mean, Matt started the project years ago by himself, and then recruited me in like our late sophomore year, and then the pandemic hit. So me and Matt, I think, literally hung out one singular time before being sent away from Berklee.
Yeah, a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of text messages.
A lot of Zoom calls, a lot of Zoom writing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, to answer your question, we were a band on the screen for a few months, and then once things started, you know, opening back up and becoming more accessible, Matt and I decided, like, okay, we want to have a full group of people. And luckily, all 3 of these musicians were our first choices for their respective fields. So it worked out about as well as it could have, but yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like, you know, because of the program at Berklee that they kind of pick and put the band together, but it was mostly you guys have your own say of, like, you know, you're in classes together, you kind of see how everybody, you know, form relationships, and you're like, hey, let's do this. So it's more like like an organic thing than a like a college putting it together type.
Yeah, this was essentially like, although we all met at Berklee, that we're not like a Berklee project. We're just students who go to Berklee who formed a band, who then, you know, took advantage of offers to us and then played it, you know, Incarceration. It's not like Berklee didn't have a direct, you know, impact on the formation or the writing or any part of the band outside of just, you know, being an entity that allowed us to have an opportunity and then kind of prepping us for that opportunity.
Nice. And then so you guys, you know, formed the band, and then how does the process work with like getting onto a festival like Incarceration? I mean, you have a department within Berklee that kind of helps set that up, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's just like an application pretty much, and we have to apply and audition for that opportunity, and there are, you know, a bunch of other bands and artists that do the same. And so it just kind of comes down to Berklee selecting, you know, the best fit for each festival.
Nice. Now I've done, you know, been involved in like kind of the Cleveland music scene for a number of years, and I've formed many relationships with a lot of bands, and you know, I know what the lifestyle can be like, you know, behind the scenes. You know, I was involved in it quite a bit myself. You know, I mean, I'm now 13 years sober, but I can't imagine like being young, you know, and then I mean, also going off to college. You always hear about party, party, party in college, and then basically we're going to become rock stars in college. You know, how has like, I mean, would you say you had the discipline and focus before going into college that you weren't going to let anything get in the way of your goals, or does Berklee kind of help institute that environment to drive you to be, you know, better, you know, and avoid all that?
It's a loaded question. I think you go, Thalia. It's fine.
I just think that that's just like an us thing, and that we're the kind of people that have been throughout our lives very driven and goal oriented and focused to achieve our goals. The whole rock star thing is not something that we have not experienced, because incarceration very much was a rock star experience, but it's not something that we have. The rock star lifestyle that you're talking about is not one that we have embraced.
Yeah.
We are very much hardworking, like progressive metal nerds who just are friends and like to hang out and play Guitar Hero together.
Yeah, I think that's the differentiating factors is like sort of, it's almost a genre thing, you know, like most of the people in the bands that we aspire to be like and you know, draw a lot of inspiration from don't lead their lives in a way that, you know, inhibits their professional success. So I think that's just sort of like, I don't know, the business model is, you know, a decent one to follow. Maybe not in terms of commercial success, but in terms of, you know, physical well-being, I'll say. We don't sort of subscribe to the whole, like, you know, stereotypical rock star lifestyle. I don't think any of us do. And I don't think any of us really are upset that that's the case. I think we're all pretty content where we're at.
No, and I think that's great. And I mean, there's a reason behind my loaded question, I guess, because I'm a dad now, and I'm a dad first and foremost. And like I mentioned earlier, my oldest 21-year-old big Shawn Mendes fan. She loves music. She did show choir in high school and stuff, and she's going at a community college here for music. And I just want her to hear from people that are at Berklee, because I think it's something that we're looking at ourselves, like what it takes to get to be successful, you know. And I guess I'm just trying to keep her on the, you know, right path. But we talked a little bit about Ink, and let's get into that experience for you guys. You know, your first big festival, were there, you know, some bands on the bill that have been kind of inspirations of yours? Did you get a chance to meet some of the people that, and then just, you know, how the Danny Wimmer team ran the whole promotion? And we'll go back to the order before. So Thalia, you start first.
Yeah, the Incarceration Festival was, again, just the greatest experience of any of our lives, I think. For starters, the Danny Wimmer team was amazing. They had the it was so well and at least from what I saw, like, it was so well organized. All of the staff was so kind, so helpful. Like, we showed up early Saturday morning and never had to worry about a thing. You know, there was always somebody there ready to help us or get us what we needed or take care of us in some way. You know, we pull up to our trailer for the first time and it's got snacks and waters and drinks and like And then we go onto stage to do our line check and everything is set up. We were all nervous. So we were all a little bit over prepared. And the second we were on stage, he's like, no, I got this for you. Oh no, take this. Just do this. Like, so easy. So Danny Wimmer, they did an amazing job. It was my first time at a Danny Wimmer festival, but amazing team. And as for the actual experience of being an artist at a festival, it was a dream come true. Firstly, the crowd was we were so well received by the crowd that, you know, it was everything you could have ever asked for. They all, not only were they like grooving during our set, but then afterwards, you know, put us a lot of love. And so we really appreciated that. As well as getting to meet all these other artists that we've been looking up to or listening to or, you know, learning from for so many years, and then having them just be like very kind and supportive of us as well. It really felt like a dream. We were all like pinching ourselves all day trying to be like, is this real life? Is this what's happening? Like I'm talking to this band that I've been listening to on my playlist for, you know, 7 years. I'm just talking to them like friends. Like, it was crazy.
Nice. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I thought it was really awesome. Basically agree with everything Thalia just said. You know, I think as far as Danny Wimmer and his, you know, Danny Wimmer Presents are concerned, they were amazing to us, you know. Definitely, I felt like very well taken care of, more than I honestly would have ever expected. You know, so that was really awesome. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously we're all huge fans of like a lot of bands that are there. I can personally speak to like Spiritbox. It was awesome to see those guys. We were fortunate enough to actually, you know, have backstage access for the whole day. So we were right there backstage for their set, which was an awesome experience that I will definitely remember forever. And then to me personally, Black Label Society was also on the bill, and Zakk Wylde was like my hero when I was like 12 years old. You know, we've already mentioned Guitar Hero a lot, but I had like customized Zakk Wylde Bullseye Les Paul Guitar Hero controllers. So that was just awesome to see him walking around, and I got to talk to some of the guys in that band, and that was really cool to talk to them too. So yeah, it meant a lot. It meant a lot to me.
Nice. How about you, James?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna have a ton new to say. I think we were all very much on the same wavelength that day. It was definitely, I think as far as the holistic experience goes, it went about as well as any one of us could have possibly hoped. I don't know, you think metal festival and you don't think like comfort, you know, it's not like the first thing that comes to mind, but that's exactly what it was. You know, it's like we got there and it was just such an easy experience. And I think you know, speaking from my own personal feelings on that day, I just got the sense that it just like everyone was there to help out, and everyone was just like excited to be there and gave a shit about like the music and really cared about making sure the artists felt just like, you know, taken care of and supported. And then as far as like the artist relations between like us and different bands, like Nick was saying, I mean, we all like Spiritbox, and it was insane watching them from the side of the stage. I mean, they put on an insane show. They're all really, really tight musicians. It was just like this really cool thing to watch them. And then another band that was really great to be around and super fun to hang out with and meet was a band called Volumes, who we actually shared a trailer wall with. And we had a lot of fun talking to those guys and watching them play. It was insane. I mean, I know me and Matt have been listening to them since high school, and have, you know, drawn a lot of inspiration from their stuff. So then just to meet them and have them be such down to earth, wholesome, funny, intelligent guys, like just people you want to be friends with, you know, it's just like, you can't ask for anything more than that, because, you know, sometimes people say like, don't meet your heroes. But in this case, it's like, I am so glad that I met my heroes, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Matt, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think going off of what James said and pretty much what everyone else said, it was kind of a life-changing experience because up until about that weekend, I had definitely been saying to myself, this is what I want to do. I want to play with these guys for a very long time. Um, After the whole festival experience, that was like it was almost like it was branded on my head because I was like, no, you have to now. You can't not let this slip away. You have to do this. And it really lit a fire under me to just say, you know what, this is it. I don't care if I put all my eggs into this basket, and if it fails, I don't care because the ultimate goal for all of us is the exact same thing. We just want to be writing fantastic, amazing music together to people like that who will enjoy it on that stage and that type of stage. And like James said, the whole experience of meeting those bands, particularly Volumes for me, Spiritbox has been a huge part of my life as well. But meeting Volumes, I didn't get to see Korn or Lamb of God, but they're other really big influences on me as well. Um, and especially Volumes, as any mid 2000s gent kid will tell you, they had a very large impact on the scene. And yeah, it was kind of completely surreal to meet those guys. So yeah.
Cool. How about you, Tanner?
Honestly, Matt kind of hit it nailed on the coffin. It was like the best experience of my life. It was meeting all those bands. Volume, Spiritbox was crazy. Being able to like talk to them backstage and like seeing how they are just day to day life is just like I don't know. It's like it's a weird thing. Like we've been looking up to Spiritbox for I guess a few years now. Maybe I don't remember exactly how long, but it's like their drummer Zev is like being able to meet him, and Mike Stringer is just like super sick. Is just being able to meet those guys plus the Volumes guys. Another band, the band Avatar, some of the nicest dudes I've ever met. Music's great. They put on an amazing show, and being able to just talk to them, they're so incredibly friendly. It's just like they kind of just took us in, like just talked to us about stuff. Just even though we're kind of nobodies right now, it's just the best experience of my life for sure. Being able to play up on that big stage in front of a huge crowd of people and seeing them like enjoy our music was just like this is what I want to do. I want to do this again and again and again because it's just the best feeling I've ever had for sure.
Yeah, Avatar was definitely one of my favorites from this weekend as well. Put on a hell of a show. So like what's next then for Among the Stars? I mean, I read you guys do have an album out, and are you working on when was that? Oh, actually, when was Gravitational Collapse? Like, when was that put together? Is that's the album, right?
That's the previous iteration of the band. We kind of like to keep that secret because it's not who we are currently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was just James and I. That was all us. That was all bedroom prog nerd stuff. We're definitely shifting into a different direction with future material though. So
Are you guys currently working on?
Yeah. So what we have a single out right now. It's called Gnosis. It's on all streaming platforms, and we're in the process of releasing an entire 4-song EP. So in just a few short weeks, the second song of that EP will be out, also on all streaming platforms. And if you're interested in kind of keeping up with that or seeing footage of us from Incarceration, you could totally check us out on Instagram at Official Among the Stars, and all of that stuff will be on there. All of the updates, all of the single releases. That's kind of the best way to keep track of what we're up to.
Nice. And then let me ask you a couple of questions that I normally ask guests that I have on. Who are, and we'll start from the beginning again, 3 people who've inspired you or you can credit for making you who you are today?
Number one, my parents. I guess that's kind of two, my mom and my dad. I'll count them as two. Yeah, they have been so supportive. I honestly probably would not have gone to Berklee without my parents really pushing me to do the thing that I loved. Sometimes going into the music field can be a little bit intimidating because, everybody likes to tell you that it's not a real career and it's just a hobby. So I felt a little nervous about it. And it was my parents who were like, this is what you need to do. Like, this is what you love. This is what you were born for. Like, you need to do it. So definitely my parents, my mom and my dad. And number three, wow, this is kind of goofy, but the first other thing that came to my mind was just like my bandmates. Because having people that you work with that you see so much potential in, like being with people who make me really believe in this project and make me really believe in the possibility of success for this band makes me want to work 7 times as hard. Being with people that I love, siblings and people that I see as being super successful makes me want to put everything I have into making this work. And so honestly, I really haven't been as hardworking and as determined and focused as I have been since working with these guys. So I know that's a lot more than 3 people, but seriously, those have been my motivators lately.
Nice. How about you, Nick?
I'll just bunch my parents or my family into number one because my parents and my sister. They've just been so supportive, and I'm really fortunate to have such a great relationship with my whole family, and that has definitely been a big factor. Kind of like Thalia said as well, their support in what is obviously a decision that feels very risky. And number two, I would say Dave Marvulio, the professor at Berklee, who has helped us out a lot as a band. And he's a bass professor, so he's helped me out a lot, both in terms of guiding my playing as a bass player and also just with really good advice and support for all of us. He's my favorite teacher that I've ever had in any discipline. I'm really fortunate to have worked with him as much as I have. And third, I would say Khalil Gibran, because he wrote The Prophet, and I think that is a sick book, and it has guided a lot of my life philosophy. So
Nice. James?
So I'm also gonna pull the parents card. Both my parents are musically inclined. My mother is a classically trained vocalist, and like I said, my dad always had a fondness for guitar. And music in general. And they both I don't know, I remember when I got the email of my acceptance letter to Berklee, I remember both of their reactions so distinctly. It was 2 a.m, so I kind of feel a little bit bad about it, but I freaked out, ran into the other room and woke up my mom, and I don't know, it's just very, very memorable thing. And I just remember my dad the next day, getting home from work, I don't know, it just, the one thing I remember him saying is that it was he said it was Ivy League for music. So I don't know, I've always felt really they were in my corner, despite what Thalia said, how sometimes people view music as a sort of dangerous thing to go into. I always felt they were encouraging of it, just because of how much joy I think it has brought to me throughout my life. At the number 2 spot, it definitely has to be my guitar teacher that I mentioned earlier, George Vanderbilt. Without him, I literally would not be half the guitarist that I am today. I mean, he's one of the best musicians I've ever met in my entire life. He plays a whole wide variety of genres. Like, he was there to help, keep my interest and that, like, the passion ignited for guitar. But at the same time, he really pushed me in like a direction of like educational guitar playing. Helped me with theory, helped me with jazz, like I said earlier. So I really owe him a lot. And then I also kind of have to lump in a few people from my high school, believe it or not. I had a theory teacher in high school named George Powers. And there was a band director who I had for like some music related classes named John Grill, who was actually a Berklee alumni. And both of them were like also incredibly supportive and super like invaluable, really great connections and really really informative people, and helped me to deepen my understanding of music and from sort of a textbook standpoint. And also the choir director at my high school, his name's Mr. Luffler, and he, was also very supportive. I did a lot of charity events with them, and they just all, despite being, like Tom's River, New Jersey, like high school teachers, were insanely talented and had wealths of knowledge that I wouldn't be the musician I am today without them.
Nice. And Matt?
Yeah, so kind of going off of what everyone else said for their first one, I'm going to put my family as the first ones. They are like probably one of the most important parts of my life, of course. They have been very supportive of everything that I do, especially when it came to music. They really instilled in me that they would support me with no matter what I did. So definitely going to have to give a spot to all of them collectively. And then I think my second spot is going to go to my grandmother, because, and I'm kind of separating her from my like nuclear family, because she was such a huge part of me doing music, and she was a huge inspiration for me for doing music as well. And she actually passed away before I went to Berklee, and it was, it was really difficult, but it kind of pushed me to keep going, essentially, because I just remember how excited she would get whenever we would talk about college. Even when her health was like severely deteriorating, she was still getting really excited about it, and that is part of what still motivates me today. And then for my third, I'm gonna lump two people together as well because they're both teachers. But easily the best professor that I've had here, which is Norm Socher. If you're an up-and-coming Berklee guitarist and you enjoy metal to any extent, please don't waste your time. Just spend time with him, because he will teach you so much stuff you have never heard of before and new ways to approach the guitar, especially in the realm of metal. Highly recommend him. And another teacher that I had, which is Brian Murphy. I'd mentioned him earlier, but he was always kind of a positive guiding force, but he was also one of the most realistic teachers I've ever had, because while I got good at a technique, he was always instilling in me that it could always be better, and that, you may feel that something is good, but at the end of the day, you're always human and you can always improve in some area or some facet. And he is just, even though I haven't taken lessons with him in probably 4 years, he still is such a huge part of my life. He taught me for nearly 10 years. So probably a little bit less than that, but still.
Nice. And Tanner?
Well, I guess, I'm going to do the parents card. That's an obvious one for me. My dad has always wanted me to do this, no matter what. He's always been trying to support me to become like a metal musician, and like hopefully a successful one at that. He's big into metal music, so seeing me do that is like one of his favorite things. So I really appreciate like everything he's done for me to get to this point and allow me to go to Berklee and whatnot, and going so far away for college and ending up finally being able to like do what him and I both wanted for me is like just one of the most like amazing things ever. I guess two for me. I'll lump in two people because they're both Berklee professors. Like Nick said, Dave Marbuglio. He has given me so many opportunities. I met him before I went to Berklee, actually. I met him at a summer camp, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I realized that this is like what I want to do, because like he does metal stuff at Berklee, and he does like ensembles and whatnot. He kind of allowed me to like do all my metal stuff with him, so I've been taking classes with him since my second semester. And then the other one is Alberto Neto. I've been taking my private instruction classes for drum set with him since my first semester. He is the most amazing guy I've like ever met. I love the dude like dearly, and he has done so much for me as a player. He has made me into who I am today as a person and a player. So he's huge. And then like the third person is actually my band director from home, my old jazz director, Neil Hicks. He, from my freshman year to my senior year in college, he brought me in and took me under his wing, kind of kept me in the right direction on things, and like always believed in me and wanting to go to music school and wanting to be a professional musician since the day I met him. You know, he's always been incredibly supportive and kind of drawn me in the right direction. Whether that means like stuff I shouldn't do, or it's like, hey, you should start doing this. This is good for you. This will help in the long run. So he started getting me into like theory and whatnot and being able to inscribe, which I wasn't familiar with because I was a drummer. And he started getting me into that before Berklee, which helped me just explode at Berklee. So those are my people, really.
Nice. And then what goals, individual goals, and yet goals as a band do you guys have going forward?
I think going forward, my goals are really just I think my personal and band goals are just to keep doing what we did this past Saturday over and over and over again. Seriously, to just keep having that experience and that type of experience where we get to do what we love with a bunch of amazing people and in front of people who are so kind and encouraging and supportive. And I think that's kind of what Incarceration was for us, is just a moment for us to really all together be like, we're on the same page. Yep. This is happening. Yeah. Okay. Like, let's keep doing this. So for me, that's kind of it for me, is my personal goal is to keep playing in front of large audiences and keep doing festivals with incredible companies like Danny Wimmer Presents. Yeah.
Nice. And Nick?
I'd kind of go with what she said. It's really, as far as the band goes, we have 3 more songs that we have to put out. So we're all kind of working hard on that, working diligently to get those out as soon as possible. And I guess for my own personal goals, I really like teaching. I would like to teach more. I already have a few students, but I would just like to take on more students because I think that music is awesome, and teaching is a great way to spread that around to other people.
Nice. James?
Yeah, I mean, band goals, like Nick said, I mean, we're all really excited. As much as the festival was a fantastic experience, and as much as we want to continue to do that stuff, we've been sitting on this EP for a bit. And I think we're all really excited to get to, just be full steam ahead with that, with the production of it. As far as personal goals go, I think I really just, my personal goals really overlap a lot with our band goals. I mean, I get so much enjoyment out of working with everyone. And it's such a rewarding process to like, put so much effort into something that you love and then release it into the world despite the reception, like just the fact that it exists in a tangible way after, weeks, if not months of working on it is always such a pleasant feeling. even if one person sends you a message saying that they like it, it's like, okay, that was worth it. So yeah, I'd say just continuing to do what we do is my personal goal. Just, keep making music.
Nice. Matt?
Yeah, so I think definitely echoing the sentiments of everybody else that has spoke so far. I definitely think that the band is going to be my primary focus for right now. I'm also still heavily interested in producing and engineering music as well. That's always been kind of something I've been interested in and have been developing slowly on my own. And then I think outside of ATS, though, there are definitely some other musical projects I would definitely like to start as well. James and I are currently in the infant stages of another project. Not anything like progressive metal, but I'm just a very big fan of artists who have a lot of different creative outlets. Like if you know, like Mike Patton, he's definitely a big influence on me when it comes to musicality. Just being able to do whatever you want musically and not feel limited and have projects that are all over the place. Like, I mean, if you know anything about him, he sung an Italian opera, and then he has like progressive metal albums, and he's just all over the place. But I love that, honestly. So that's definitely going to be one of my goals going forward. So
Yeah, he's been one of my favorites for a number of years.
he's great. He's really great.
And Tanner?
I guess for like the band, it's kind of the same everyone else has said. Echoing what Thalia said, after this weekend, I want to do this more and more and more. Playing this festival is like so incredible. So if I really want to be able to get to that point where we can just do that like all the time, just because that would be just like the greatest thing in the world. It's a dream come true. And like same, I just want to release music as well with the band, because like being able to get like the stuff that we've been working on for months out there and seeing how people react to it, like James said, it's like that's something that I've been like waiting for months, and now that we're finally able to like start getting it out there, I just can't wait to see people's reaction. As for myself, I really want to like, I guess just like master my craft. So like I want to be practicing every day, like hours every day, just trying to be better and better, so I can be like the best version of myself that like I'm able to be. And I want people to like see me and get inspired by things like that. So I want people to like see videos of me or like listen to our music and make them want to do whatever they want to do. So if that's like become a musician, I want me to be like someone they can look up to and like be like, this guy's who I want to be. So I guess like just being the best version of myself I can be is going to be my main or I guess outlet, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, we've been going at it for over an hour here, and I want to get ready and wrap up, let you guys get back to, working towards those goals. But before I let you go, like, for any fans that might be new to learning, I know you talked a little bit about the Instagram and stuff like that, but any other fans that want to support you guys on your journey and know more about you, where would you send them?
Yeah, I think that the best place to keep up with us is definitely the Instagram at Official Among the Stars. We also are on Facebook. I think it's Among the Stars Band MA for Massachusetts. But certainly the best place to get all of the pertinent information on music releases, video releases, merch, what we do in our free time, that's going to be the Instagram at Official Among the Stars.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, thank you guys for your time, man. And I wish you the best in getting on another one of those festivals and getting out there and performing. And hopefully you come through the Cleveland area.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we hope to.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for your time, guys. You guys have a good day.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you too, man.
Bye.